Vivix has a unique polyphenol profile that is proprietary. Okay, so what does Vivix do? It does 4 separate things. It improves cell defense, it increases cell energy, it promotes cellular repair, and it optimizes cell performance, reduces advanced glycation end products. So first thing. So this was a study that was done with a number of college students. And the biological stress response is a approved term when we're talking about the potential for disease for inflammation. So when you see biological stress response, it equals inflammation. Inflammation is a good thing. And if you cut yourself and these tissues become inflamed and things get protected and whatnot, it's a natural response. But if you have a generalized inflammatory response in your body, that is a very, very, very bad thing. It is very detrimental to your health. Again, kind of beyond my pay grade to explain all of that, but just take my word for it that you do not want inflammatory response happening in your body if you possibly can. You stay far healthier if your general inflammation level is very low. And at some point, I'll get Dr. Steve Cheney or Dr. Daggy or Dr. Painter to come on and talk more about the details of that, but take my word for it for tonight. You don't want inflammation going on. So these students ate a typical high-fat meal. I think it was about 1,000 to 1,100 calorie, like McDonald's or, kind of high-fat, high-sugar meal, quote-unquote meal. And then they looked at the inflammatory response. Well, if you look at the top line, the control group that wasn't taking Vivix, the inflammatory response takes off and stays high for 5 hours. Now, the second group, that was the control group, the experimental group, ate the same meal and had a teaspoon of Vivix. And you see what happened. The inflammation response was almost totally blunted. In other words, there was no significant inflammatory response from that punishing meal. Now, does that mean that you ought to go out and eat fast food all the time and just take Vivix? No, of course not. But it's very, very important to understand that even in the face of that assault on the body, the Vivix key ingredients kept the inflammatory response flat, which is a really pretty cool thing. And I don't recall which studies were done at which. I think this might have been SUNY Buffalo did this. It was SUNY Buffalo and University of Tennessee did quite a bit of work with these. So this is a really cool thing. One of the things that happened about 9 years ago, I started to bike. I had a pretty nice bike, but it was a hybrid because I didn't want to have a road bike and then another bike for town. So I settled on a hybrid bike, which is kind of like a road bike, but it's quite a bit heavier. I hadn't really biked a lot, and I went out with a bike group and guys who ride some, 200 miles a week. And I was riding with them, and they said, "What do you do to train?" And I go, "I ride to the meditation dome and back twice a day." They said, "Get out of here. You shouldn't be able to do what you do." I had been taking Vivix for, I think, 2 or 3 years at that point. And, I think my capacity to ride a bike faster and harder than the average person who did almost no training may have had something to do with the health and the number of mitochondria that I had. Because if you look at the control group here, this, by the way, is a muscle cell, and the lubes patches are mitochondria. So you can see that mitochondria kind of distributed around the control. Now, you have a muscle cell that has been bathed in resveratrol or, subjected to resveratrol in some appropriate way. Well, you'll see more mitochondria. And then you look at Vivix and you see all kinds of mitochondria. So what Vivix does is it helps fix mitochondria that are broken or that are not doing well. And it induces mitochondrial biogenesis, which means that it helps mitochondria actually duplicate, have more mitochondria. So it's like if you had a house, big house, and you had 7 furnaces, and it's a big house, and one of them conks out, you're probably not so bad. But if 3 or 4 of them conk out, you're in trouble. So it's just like fixing your furnaces and then maybe making more furnaces. So every analogy gets a little strayed. I think that would got a little strained. But in any case, you get the idea that this is great for improving your mitochondrial situation in your cells. So number 3, cellular repair. So in a laboratory study, Vivek's key ingredients were shown to protect and repair cellular DNA. Well, again, folks, it's all about the integrity of your cellular DNA. If your cellular DNA is attacked and it doesn't come back together, that's what Jeff Bloomberg told us, that every DNA strand is attacked multiple times during the day. It's inevitable because we take oxygen in, right? We breathe. Even normal digestion, free radicals come from sun and from environmental pollutants and from getting mad or getting jealous or, all kinds of reasons why that might happen. And so in order to maintain health, your body has to be able to go in and repair that DNA back to the way it's supposed to be. So when it duplicates, it doesn't duplicate with a bunch of typos. And so the Vivek's key ingredients protect and help repair cellular DNA, which I think is actually pretty cool. And then cellular performance. This is another really, really fun story. If you look at the formation of advanced glycation end products, resveratrol does in fact inhibit that, but the Vivek's polyphenol blend inhibits it dramatically more. And again, the H proteins are like the bags of garbage in your house. You don't want too many bags of garbage. In fact, hopefully you don't want any bags of garbage. But if you're going to have bags of garbage, you want to have a very small number. And so this allows the cell to operate properly. If they have a whole bunch of this plaque in it, it makes the cell function not so well, or actually too much, and it can actually kill the cell, which is not a good thing at all. Okay, so here is a fun bunch of slides. These are some of the slides that Dr. Daggy provided to me. So here is the setup with this particular study. Human pancreatic cells were exposed to a control or resveratrol Vivek's active ingredients. Pancreatic cells were bathed in resveratrol. Another petri dish, I suppose, was bathed in Vivek's active ingredients. Then the treatment was washed away. Then the cells were challenged by oxidative stress. I think in this particular instance, it was an acid that was put in. And then the DNA damage was imaged and measured. And I think there was also a dish that was part of the experiment that didn't have any treatment at all. So there was 3 dishes: pancreatic cells that had no treatment, pancreatic cells that were bathed in resveratrol, pancreatic cells that were bathed in Vivek's active ingredients. Treatment washed away, cells exposed to acid stress for 5 minutes, and then the DNA damage was imaged and measured. And this particular graph is called a COMET graph, because what it actually measures is the debris field around the DNA, because the DNA gets blown up, gets destroyed by the stress. And so here is all that's left of the DNA. See that little blob on the left, a little faint blob, like something out in the solar system on the left? And that big, hazy, slightly lighter green area is the debris field of all of the DNA that got blown up, if you will. Okay, so this is the DNA of the cells bathed in resveratrol. Much better, right? If you look at not much left here, there's a good bit left, but then you see this big, huge debris field of DNA that was kind of pulled apart and destroyed. Are you ready for this? It's really cool. Here's Vivek's. So here's the 3 together. No intervention whatsoever, resveratrol and Vivek's. Now let me ask you folks, here's a simple question. You want blown up DNA or unblown up DNA? I think it's probably a pretty easy answer. I'll take the DNA, the Vivek's DNA. Isn't that amazing? It really is quite amazing. Now, the last slide I'll show you is something that, again, Dr. Daggy and Francis Lau helped two doctors, Dr. McHugh and Dr. Hollins, who were optometrists and eye doctors. They were starting to experiment. I guess they had a Shaklee distributor, and Shaklee distributor told them about Vivix, and so they started to experiment with their patients, just having them use Vivix. And they looked at macular degeneration, age-related macular degeneration. Now, as I understand, again, I'm not a scientist, but I'm doing my best to channel Dr. Daggy and Dr. Cheney. Age-related macular degeneration, under all other conditions that I'm aware of and that I've heard of from my scientist friend, there's never been a study that shows that there's any protocol that can do anything but slow the progression of macular degeneration. In fact, this AREDS2, that is an acronym for a particular nutritional profile, a bunch of nutrients that have been known or put together, clinically shown, to diminish the rate of progression of macular degeneration. So here are patients that are on the AREDS formulation and the control groups on Vivix. And I believe they found that about 75% of their patients actually had a reversal of macular degeneration. That's absolutely mind-boggling. This was what they call a poster that was presented in 2015 at an eye conference. So this is really quite an extraordinary thing. And Dr. Daggy had an experiment. He had a scan of his retina, and he found that these little drusen, which are little lesions on the retina, which apparently the mechanism that's proposed here is that something in the ingredients in Vivix help heal the drusen. So he got a scope of his eyes, and then he started using Vivix. And when he came back, the doctor came in. This is astounding. He said, "See this there used to be a drusen here. There isn't a drusen anymore." So that, folks, is really kind of the story. It's amazing that Shaklee Science is able to pull this kind of thing off. We who are involved with Shaklee can be justifiably proud of the company for having the capacity to even create something like this.